Please welcome Paige.
Thanks, Brett. Good morning. Okay, everyone stand up really quickly. You've been sitting for a long time, and I know how that feels. And give each other on either side of you a high five. And imagine I'm giving you high fives, because I'm so excited that you all are here. Okay, you can sit back down. It's like church, but with high fives. I might not have a working presentation this morning. Let's see. How y'all doing? Good. All right. I am so excited to be here. I drove down from Lexington yesterday, and walking in this morning with the music made me want to tap dance, but I will spare you all from watching a pregnant woman try to tap dance. So we all have a stake in the outcome. That phrase might mean something different to you than it does to me. Who's the we I'm talking about? What is our outcome? But I'm here to share a little bit about what this phrase has meant to me in my career in higher education, working on political campaigns, working in politics at the state and local level, and how it's influenced my daily life. So I work for a nonprofit in Lexington called Fayette Alliance, and basically I wake up every day, my team and I, thinking about Lexington, thinking about this beautiful bluegrass farmland and our vibrant city that's surrounded by this farmland. But in 2006, the Central Kentucky bluegrass cultural landscape was listed on the World Monuments Fund top 100 most endangered sites in the world. It's not really the top 100 list that you want to be on, is it? So why? Why were we considered a threatened landscape? We were listed right up there that year with Ellis Island, ancient Roman temples, and Chinese villages. And what did this new label, this top 100 listing, mean for us? Well, the primary reason we were included on this list was because of urban sprawl. I love this picture, but I also would hate to live there. It's not Lexington, but many of you probably know what sprawl is. If you've been to LA or Chicago or many cities here in Kentucky, we're experiencing urban sprawl. And we were growing in Lexington at such a rapid pace that we were undermining our region's sense of place. We were destroying the industries, threatening our farming community that made us unique, why people come to the bluegrass. We were destroying what made the bluegrass the bluegrass. And there are so many other costs associated with urban sprawl. Next slide. The first cost that I hate to talk about is how housing becomes less affordable. It also affects the cost of our infrastructure. When you literally spread people out, it becomes more expensive because you have to build roads, and then you have more potholes, and you have more sewers to worry about. But you also have to worry about your fire, your police departments. You need more community services like libraries and community centers, and you need more schools as your community grows like that. There's also a cost to the public transportation. We become more car dependent because it's easier to get in your car to drive someplace, and it creates a difficulty in making a solid argument for efficient public transportation. I lived in Chicago for 4 years, and one of my favorite things and the things that I miss most is that I could walk out of my apartment and within a block hop on a bus or train and get downtown in just a few minutes. And I missed my community members. I would see the same people on the bus every day. I would recognize them, and it really made me feel like I was at home in that community. But when we're all in our little cars, we're not able to connect with our neighbors in the same way. And I don't need to tell you that when we are more car dependent, we're increasing our carbon footprint. So what do we do about that? Well, we heeded the advice of one of my favorite Kentuckians, Wendell Berry, who said, "The care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, our most pleasing responsibility. To cherish what remains of it and to foster its renewal is our only hope." So, in Lexington, we heeded this warning, and a coalition of concerned citizens came together from all different backgrounds. We had real estate developers, we had bankers, we had teachers, farmers, educators, local government officials, who all knew that we had a stake in the outcome, that we could change the course of our community if we all came together around protecting this landscape. So we have our why and our what, but in Lexington, we always say it's not if we grow, it's how. So we need to know, how do we do this? How do we protect our land? So, like any good nonprofit, we established a mission and we decided to focus on 3 general areas. First, we wanted to preserve our farmland. You saw that rolling hills landscape. If you've been to Lexington, you know, driving in, it's one of the most beautiful landscapes in the world. But it's not just beautiful, it's also a huge economic driver for our community. 1 in 12 jobs is associated with the agriculture industry, and it's a $2.3 billion economic benefit for our community. But we couldn't just focus on the farmland. We also needed to focus on the city and make sure that it was growing in a really smart way. So we wanted to make it easier for developers to have innovative designs and cut through red tape. And while doing that, you also have to focus on improving our infrastructure. Nope. Huh? This is my favorite visual for this. You have to have both sides, and essentially we wanted to maintain and establish balance between protecting our farmland and making sure that our city was functioning and creating a high quality of life for all citizens. So we put our mission into action in 3 ways. We like 3s. First, we want to fund research. Like any good student, we know that your strongest argument is when you have good data. So we wanted to figure out, where does Lexington need to grow and how does it need to grow? And then we wanted to talk with all of our community members. We want to educate them on what is important in our city, where do we need to grow, and how do we get there. Most importantly, we wanted to educate the citizens, the voters, the ones who were putting the people in the places of power to make decisions. And then we advocate not only to the citizens, the voters, but also to the decision makers. That all sounds well and good, right? But how do you actually do that, you're probably wondering. Well, we meet people where they are. I, as a fundraiser, meet people on their farms, in coffee shops, in their homes, in their office spaces. I literally go to them to understand what they value about our community, what their hopes and dreams are, so that we can find our shared values for our community. And that means in those meetings that I do a lot more listening than I talk. I've already talked about how we use our research to strengthen our argument. And when I was talking about our coalition of concerned citizens, we made sure that we had a diversity, not only in background, but voice and experience, because we know that we're stronger as a community when everyone has a seat at the table. And then we work to build consensus to create proactive steps around these shared values. Consensus looks like, to us, a green space survey when we found that 72% of our population did not support expanding our urban services boundary. So I have a map of Fayette County. This is where Lexington is located. And this dashed line here that someone once told me they thought looked like Scooby-Doo's face. I don't know if I totally agree. This is what is called our urban services boundary. So in this survey, we found 72% agreed, 72% of the population did not want to expand this boundary. I don't think you can get 72% of the population to agree on anything. Maybe in Lexington cheering for the Kentucky Wildcats, but even that I think is a stretch. But we worked really hard to educate folks on why this boundary exists and what its purpose is. So it was established in 1958. It's the very first in the nation, urban growth boundary, and it serves 2 purposes. It says, we will grow our community here. We will sewer to here. It was really the primary motivation. Sewer is super sexy, right? Everybody needs to think about it. But we said we will grow to here, and we will protect what is on the boundary. We protect this farmland because we know that it's important to who we are in our community. And in 2017, Fayette Alliance experienced a huge win for our community when we, after educating all of our elected officials and getting people to call their council members and show up to council meetings, when the commission and the council said, we won't expand this. For the next 5 years, we will focus on what is happening inside our urban core. And that was a huge win for us. Our elected officials actually listened to their community members. In Lexington, we have a nonpartisan government, which means that folks run not as a Republican or a Democrat or as an independent or whatever party. They run just as citizens. And we as an organization work really hard to make sure that they're listening to all of their constituents, so they're representing everyone. Because we know that we're stronger together, right, when everyone's voice is heard. And especially having worked in partisan politics, I have found that there is such a freedom in meeting your elected officials where they are without those partisan labels, just as members of the community. Because ultimately, the land does not care if you are a Democrat or a Republican. The land is there to be cared for, and that is our job. I'll go back to what Wendell Berry said when he wrote, "Whether we and our politicians know it or not, nature is party to all our deals and decisions, and she has more votes, a longer memory, and a sterner sense of justice than we do." Every time I read that quote, I kind of have to sit back, because thinking long-term like that is really powerful. And in our 24-hour news cycle, notification overload, I want to throw my phone out the window most days. It can be really hard to create space, like Brianna was talking about, to build consensus, to bring people together, to really listen to each other. But it has to be intentional, just like caring for the land has to be intentional, and that's what we strive to do every day. And in creating that space, that intentional space, there has to be vulnerability, and there has to be trust, and there has to be mutual respect. I'm curious if any of you can imagine a world where we are united by more than the fact that we are just dissatisfied with our politicians. Can any of you imagine a world like that? Days like this make me realize that it's possible because you all are coming together. I'm also curious, I'm not going to ask what party, but I'm curious if any of you identify with a political party. Just raise your hand if you do. A few. I thought some more. Okay, good. Nice. I'm curious then, for those who did, or maybe if you aren't, how many of you, if I were to read your Twitter bio or follow you on Facebook or just talk to you for 5 minutes, how likely is it that I will learn your politics or your labels really quickly? Just a few. Interesting. That's not what I expected from you all, so I am glad to be surprised this morning. My political consciousness came about when I was your age in high school. It was right when 9/11 happened, and what I valued then is a lot different than what I value now. And I was really inclined to hold hard and fast to political labels. I thought that was the be-all, end-all, and I had found my tribe. But as I've gone to college and lived in a big city and met people from so many different backgrounds, I've learned that those labels were keeping me from getting to know the people I was trying to work with. They kept me from solving the problems that I wanted to solve in the world. And I've tried really hard in my life to get outside of those labels. At Fayette Alliance, I get the chance to meet with citizens and my neighbors every single day. And I tell them that I want to understand what they value, what they love about Lexington. And the phrase I use all the time is, "Tell me more. Tell me more about that experience. Tell me more so that I can get to know you better. Tell me more because I don't understand that." There's no fear in saying I don't know. And through this, I've learned that in creating vulnerability in myself and in these conversations and decisions, that the decisions and the planning become so much more equitable and future-focused and a heck of a lot more creative. Because whether we like it or not, we are all on the same road. Maybe not this beautiful road at Shaker Village, but we are all having the same experience as far as where our world is going, and we can change the trajectory because we all have a stake in the outcome. No one wins in an us versus them world. And when we come together, our decisions and the quality of life for all of our community is going to be so much greater. At Fayette Alliance, we work to create space so that we're protecting our natural landscapes, but also to create space in the dialogue so that the decisions are much stronger. And the future is now. I love that that's the theme for today, because it is now and it always will be now. We can't stop thinking about what's down the road. And I can't wait for you all to tell me more about your hopes and your dreams for our future. So thank you all for being here.